Okay, I hope this video looks okay. I've been fidgeting with the camera placement. I'm limited because of the tripod and how close I can get it to the tabletop here. It's crazy the color contrast between the original white of the plastic and the insignia white that I've done with the bridge assembly here. This almost looks primered next to this white, whereas next to an actual primered piece, this is significantly white. It's interesting. So I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out once I have the entire model painted in white. I hope it turns out all right. I think I'm going to be happy with it. When I look at just this by itself, the bridge assembly, I'm pretty satisfied with the color. And once I have the accent colors along with it, I think it'll look pretty good. This is just simply way too white for me. Anyway, let's talk about the saucer section. As you can see, I have gone ahead and I've already scuffed up the surface here using a 600 grit. I washed it with soap and water first as well. And I've also cut out the pieces, the side pieces for the saucer section. And I did originally have them all glued around, or not glued, sorry, taped around. I was just doing a test, a fitting test. And there was a couple of areas that I wasn't too happy, where there were some gaps, like next to the airlock here. There's a gap of about 1/4 millimeter. I'll fit them again before I come to any conclusions, but it looks like I may need to filler that, which is a pain in the butt because there's the detail on the side, which is the sensors. And having a gap in any of these pieces is going to be a real pain in the ass to deal with. I've also noticed while I'm pointing out flaws that along the surface, let's see if I can catch the light. There's little pits. Can we see it there? All along the edge of the saucer section, there are little pits everywhere that you have these little pieces, here and here and here and here. And I think those are caused by the cooling process. When they pipe the hot plastic into the forms, that plastic cools. And as those really thick pieces, these edges here, as they cooled, they sucked in the edge of the plastic and they created a bit of a divot or a pit. I don't know if I've never heard anybody else mention this. I don't know if it's just the production run of this particular model that I bought, but that is really disappointing, I have to say, because I need to fix that. I'm not going to whine and complain. I'll deal with it, but it is pretty disappointing that it would come like that out of the box. I would rather they have made these pieces separate and that I have to fasten them myself rather than have this cause a factory flaw, and a pretty serious one in my mind. So I mean, that's something that Polar Lights, I think they need to, if they're going to revise this model and release it again, this is something they need to fix. I'd love to hear some feedback from anybody else, whether they have seen this or not. The only way I can think of to deal with that is to thin out some modeling putty and just try to get it in there. The pain in the butt part is that that pit extends past this line, past this detail line, just a little bit, but enough, so that I may have, I'm running the chance when I'm sanding down the putty of losing that edge of the detail. Anyway, I'll deal with it when I get to it. So yeah, what are the steps I have to take here? So these phaser banks, I am removing these. I'll grind them down. There's one on each side and one forward. These windows, I had considered filling them and then recutting these windows, simply because to scale, they might be quite big. But in the end, I decided, that's a lot of extra work. I don't think anybody's going to get too nitpicky about that. I'll just clean them up, clean all the flashing out of them, and I think I'll just leave them the way it is. I had considered maybe going and you can get styrene tubing of various sizes and just see if I could find a piece of tubing that I could either make these holes a little bit larger, I guess, if necessary, put the tubing in there, trim the ends, so that in the end I would get a smaller opening. But I think that's a lot of extra work, and I don't know that I want to pursue that. I do need to do some cutting here, apparently, because in some of the videos that I've seen, the paragraphics piece that goes over here, the photo etch, there's a piece that goes over here, and it's a little bit large, so some of this, either the photo etch needs to be cut, or this edge needs to be trimmed out, or a little bit of both. So that's something I'll have to get done here fairly quickly. Speaking of the phaser banks again, I am going to take these right down, so I will need to bring those actual phaser banks up again. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I'm considering turning this over, shining some light through the back of it, marking off where the phaser banks are, and then once these are scored down, drilling a hole up underneath, sticking up a piece of styrene cylinder, and rounding off the edge, and then recreating the phaser bank that way. I don't know. I'll see when I get there. It could just be the case that I just need to glue something down onto the surface. Whichever way is easier, that's what I'll do. Yeah, let's talk about the lighting for this, because I have something that I'm going to do that's very unique. I've never seen anybody else do that. I've decided that I would like to light, rather than using a single LED strip here, and I'm glad I didn't make any modifications. A lot of people I've seen, they hack this part out, and I was almost ready to do that just in some of my initial prep work, and I'm glad I didn't. The reason being, I've decided to light, in some cases single, but in some cases groups. I'm going to light these crew quarters individually. So let me see if I can get my pencil in here and I can point these out. You can see, does the camera pick up what we have here? You can kind of see that. So on the far edge, we have the oval window. I'll light that individually. Then I have a group of 2. I'll light that as a group. Then we have 2. I'll light that as a group. 2. I'll light that as a group. 2. I'll light that as a group. And then, of course, the individual again, I'll light that individually. I have considered including this bottom circular window in this group of 2, and this bottom circular window in this group of 2, just to make it a little bit easier. But I think what I'm going to do is create a floor between these decks and light this one individually and this one. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lights per each of these type of saucer section crew quarters. There's 6 of these in total, and there's one that looks like this. It has fewer windows, so that looks like a group of 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 individual lights, and then of course, and that's on the back here, and then of course on the other side we have I think that's called the rec deck. So I have 6 sections with the, I should come up with a name for this, with the lot of windows. Let's just call that the lot of windows, and that's the fewer windows. So 8 LEDs for this section, which is just perfect because the shift register, I'll get into what a shift register is for anybody who doesn't know. The shift register that I'm going to use to do this lighting, it has 8 outputs, so that works out just perfectly. So 8 times what we have, I think 6 of them. I can do that. That's not a hard chore. So that requires what, 6 shift registers scattered around here, along with the circuit board they'll be mounted on, resistors for each of the LEDs. So I'll have to design a circuit board to handle the lighting for each of these. The reason I'm doing that is I want these lights to be addressed individually. So what I'd like to achieve is when you first power up the ship from the base, I'll design the base. I haven't even gotten anywhere near to drafting any designs for that yet. But when you first power the system up and the crew quarter lights switch on, I want them all to come on kind of individually until they're all on, like until bang, they're all on quickly, but individually. So Something else I'd like to do is randomly, while this ship is running, have lights turn off once in a while and have them turn on once in a while, like to give the model some life, make it appear that it's being lived in. Not all if these are crew quarters, which I think that's what they are. Sometimes the crew is asleep or they're not in their rooms. Like the lights aren't always on, even though in the movies, yeah, okay, they're always on. But just applying a little imagination, you would suspect that some of these lights would be off from time to time. So that's something I'm going to do, and just to give it a little extra life. I mean, of course, we've got our strobes going off, we've got our navigation lights blinking, but this is just another step that I can take to give the model the appearance of some life. And I think that would be a really nifty step if I can pull it off. And I've already been trying to determine how to make that happen. The difficulty is going to be light blocking each of these separate sections. And I've been fiddling around with that, playing around with it, and I've come up with, see if I can get the light on this. This little shape is perfect. And what that does, we have this, let's get into the camera here and let's get into the light. Gosh, where's my pointer? I'm gonna have to do it this way. Okay, so this part that sticks down, this goes into the channel, into here. We have that channel that runs all along around the circumference of the saucer section. This back edge would fit up against this back edge, this bulkhead here. And this rounded portion in the front, right there, it's slightly rounded, just enough to mate with this here, which is a slightly rounded surface as well. I don't know if I can get a cross section in there. This is rounded. So I fit that out. Yeah, it fits pretty well. I'll show you here real quick. I've marked off where I need to mount them, only in one section so far. I have yet to go around and do the entire, and I've cut enough of these for one section. So that mounts in there. It pushes down. Oops. It sits on its own pretty nicely. And, oops, kind of like that. It's hard to do standing up. Let's push that down in there. That channel is not completely square inside there, so when I cut that, I had to narrow. Let me get another one out. The width from the bottom 2 points here to here is not the same as here to here. I had to angle that just slightly, ever so slightly, and what that does is it squeezes in there nicely, so it actually sits all by itself, which is nice. Where am I? So yeah, I'll put these in here. That'll create my quarters. I'll glue them in afterwards. I'll get in there and light block them and try to seal off any escapes for the light. Something I've discovered along the way, and by the way, this is a neat little trick. I'm really happy to share this. In exploring how I was going to light block this once it's all done, the difficulty is when you put this piece on, you can't really see in there to find out where the light is escaping. You can't get your head in there. There's only a very small little gap, but this edge prevents you from seeing anything. So one of the primary places that I have light escaping right now, this piece came out on me. Let's get that back in there again. Okay. Well, I don't know for sure. I haven't done any light tests, but light is definitely going to escape. If you can see this. Right underneath here, even when I squeeze that down all the way, this edge, gosh, that's really blurry. It's really hard to see. And I have no control of the focus. The camera just does what it wants. It's really annoying. And if I block with my hand, you can't see. Can you see? Right in here, this has to overhang by just a little bit. Just a little, in order for this edge to mate. And what that means is I need to fill this somehow. So in my experiments, what I did is I took a piece of very thin polystyrene. Gosh, I have to back up. I hate this camera. And I want you to be able to see this. So what I did is I took a piece of polystyrene, it's very small, and I've tacked it along the outside edge here. And what that'll do, this piece wasn't quite tall enough. I'll have to buy, let me find out what that is. That is my trusty, I've used this before. This is my 03 by 04 again. It's 0.75 millimeter by 1 millimeter. So what I've done is I've taken the 1 millimeter, the height of it is backed up against the original bulkhead, this original edge in here. What I'd like to do is go down to my hobby store, unfortunately it's closed today, and get a piece that's taller than 1 millimeter, something that's maybe 1.25. I think one and a half might even do. 1.5 might be perfect. It would be flush with this edge, which would be absolutely ideal, because then I don't need to add any putty along this edge to fill the rest of it. But I found, of course, my concern then is, am I preventing the side pieces from mounting? And the answer is no. And in fact, the answer is an emphatic no. What I'm doing is perfecting that mounting, and I'll show you here real quick. So with a piece of polystyrene in here, that's 0.75 millimeters, it extends that bulkhead by 0.75 millimeters. I found that I can get these side pieces on here, and that creates a perfect edge. That is a perfect edge. I can't push that in any further. It is exactly, there's no seam, whereas now you can see the edge of the polystyrene. It ends right about here. I just didn't bother tacking any more on. So if I put this back on here again, anywhere that polystyrene doesn't exist, I can push this in and create an imperfect seam here. There's an edge. But anywhere that strip exists, there's no edge. It mates perfectly. So there's a nice little trick for you guys. Even if you're not going to do the individual cabin lighting the way I'm doing here, put down a piece of 0.75 millimeter, that's in metric, or sorry, in imperial, that's the 03 edge. Mate that down against here, because that's going to help when you go to affix these. It matches perfectly. I was really pleased when I discovered that. And for my purpose, because I am lighting these cabins individually, what that gives me is that little part that overhangs, which is this edge right here. It overhangs the original bulkhead. I'll just call it a bulkhead. I don't know what else it is. It overhangs a little bit, but with that piece of polystyrene, it mates to this corner exactly, which is going to help me in my light blocking. It's an absolutely ideal solution. And then the only place I have left after that to block the light, well, two places. Number one is anywhere that there's already one of these, because this is cut back past the edge, so I'll need to put something in here to fill that gap out. But beyond that, the only other place where I have light escaping is, oh, I got that upside down, is along here. There's also a little gap. And once again, the 03 by 04 comes to my rescue. because if I can glue this little piece in there, that covers it nicely. I don't know if I can, I'm probably blocking those with my hand. Let's try it this way. 03 by 04s. We'll get in there and I can seal off those compartments. It's absolutely perfect. This is the handiest piece of styrene that I have, is my 3/4 of a millimeter by 1 mil. Although, like I said, I need to get 3/4 of a mil by 1.5 mil, and that would be perfect. I wish I could run down to the store right now and buy some, because I would like to experiment with that. Oh yeah, one last thing I have to do is everywhere that there's this gap in here, I'm going to have to fill that. And again, I was playing around, I experimented, and I've created a piece. It doesn't quite fit yet. I need to cut it down a little bit, but that'll create my floor between those sections. And I had to do that using several different strips. So I used 2 pieces of 2 millimeter and then 1 piece of 1 millimeter, because if I tried to go any thicker than 2 mil, it had a tough time bending. It wanted to either A, push this out and remove that curve, or B, like tuck itself in. Like it was creating tension and it didn't like the tension, so it had to be relieved somewhere. And using the thinner styrene, I would rather the tension be here. I would rather this give a little bit than this give. So yeah, that seemed to work out really well. Yeah, and with all those, I was playing all night last night, and it was about 3 in the morning when I discovered this piece of 3/4 of a millimeter thick created a perfect edge to mate my sides with and have it exactly flush with the edge here. I was really pleased when I discovered that. If you're in the middle of building this model yourself, try it. It does work. It's a handy little trick. So let's talk about the lighting that I'm going to use inside here. For the crew quarters, I've opted to use, now like I said, I had 3 varieties of warm white. I'm going to use the warmest of them. Where did I put my pencil? There we go. For the crew quarters. So everywhere there's these crew quarters, I'll use you can see I've put W's all the way around. That's going to be my very warm whites. This I'm undecided. I'm going to use, this is the Rec Deck. I'll either use the warmest or possibly a neutral, which is it's still a warm, but it's a neutral kind of a warm. I'm also going to use an ambient light inside the saucer, and you can see I've put N, N, and N, which means a neutral. I'm going to probably just glue an LED here, here, and here. And what that'll do is, I don't have the bottom of the saucer section here with me, but there are lights in the bottom of the saucer section that are directly underneath here, here, and here. The philosophy that I'm going with is between those 3 varieties of white, anywhere that's crew habitation or just generally crew, anywhere that the bridge crew or the ship crew would sit and relax or live or occupy their time, I'll use the warmest of the LEDs. The neutral, which is a little bit cooler than that, not quite as orange, a little bit more towards the blue spectrum. Anywhere that I suspect might be laboratories or engineering compartments, anywhere that crew would be, but in a much more professional capacity, I want to use a more neutral or a cooler version, more towards the neutral side, I think. For engineering and laboratories and stuff like that, I'll use a cooler LED. And anywhere that is internal to the ship, but not necessarily somewhere a crew would normally be, like the computer core or anything that would represent maybe the turbo shafts. I'll get into where I think those might be. I mean, this is make no mistake, this is creative license here. Pardon me. Yeah, I'll get into where that's going to be, because I won't find those cools anywhere in here. And of course, we have the officer's lounge. I'll use either a neutral, but I'm leaning more towards the warm inside that. Yeah, so there is going to be an ambient light to the inside of the saucer. Those lights are going to shine through the windows in the bottom of the saucer section directly under here. And then, of course, I'll test that all up before I seal it. I still need to work out how I'm going to light this. I've bought RGB, a few varieties of RGB LEDs through holes, and I've also bought some SMD RGBs. We'll see. I don't think I'll use the SMDs here, probably just one single RGB bulb, and I'll experiment with it until I get the shade of blue that I like. I don't think this ever turns amber, so I just need a blue for this. But I didn't want to just go ahead and buy a blue. I wanted something that I can play with the values and adjust that level of blue to make sure I got the right one. So I went with an RGB LED. I've got 4 different types that I can play around with. And we'll see how that turns out. And I think that does it for my lighting for the saucer section. Well, I mean, except for we'll have the navigation lights. So there's the red and the green between the 2 sides. And then 1, 2, 3 whites. No, 4, 5 whites. Is that 5 whites? And of course, we've got ambers in the thruster sections. And I bought, again, I picked up a few different types of ambers and also of the red and greens, although the reds are back ordered. I'm still waiting on those. They may not arrive until after Christmas, apparently. So we'll see. But we'll get into my light inventory here in a sec for those who are curious. So let me pull out the secondary hull and the neck and the, not the nacelles, I think these are called the pylons of the ship. And what I've done is I was testing the fit of these. I wanted to see what kind of work I was looking forward to. And the fit was okay in some areas and in some areas very poor. I haven't pushed down my neck all the way yet because there's quite a bit of resistance in there, and I didn't want to mount it just yet. I didn't want to wear out these points. I want to evaluate this a little bit further before I push this down. But the neck mostly, I mean, it comes together nicely. There is a bit of a gap here. These need to be squeezed. And in fact, it looks like the edges kind of curve in towards each other, so I may need to do some sanding. But then I'll need to push these when I mate them together. I found the same thing is true in this leading edge of the neck. It's maybe a little more obvious. You can see that the leading edges seem to be curved towards each other. So I probably need to sand those down before I mate those finally. But let's talk about the whites that I've chosen for the neck, because I think this illustrates how I'm going to use the cool and the neutral variants of the warm white LEDs. What I imagine is probably, I looked up some schematics, and somewhere in here is the main computer core. So I thought, well, it just so happens that there's these 4 LEDs in a nice line. So what I'm going to do is in the interior, I'm going to create a compartment to isolate these 4 LEDs, and in there, I will use the coolest of the warm whites that I have. I don't see any of these being crew habitation or crew recreation. So the rest of this, I'm assuming, is either engineering or laboratories. So this is where I'll use like the ambient inside the neck. I'll use an LED in the front and an LED in the back to create an ambient neutral white. And those lights will come through these areas. So it'll be a nice little contrast. And there is a contrast, by the way. I've wired a few of these SMDs together. And there is a noticeable difference in the hue of those. And I think it'll really stand out having different organized shades of that white light coming through here. The same down here, obviously, in areas where you have crew recreation. This is the Arboretum, so I'd want this to be a warmer light for sure. These are larger windows, so obviously these are meant for observation in some cases, somehow. I don't know what they are exactly, but it's funny, I think there's a difference between... I did encounter a difference. Yeah, so you can see here towards the aft of the ship, there's these double ovals, and here there isn't. So there are some... What just happened? Oh, my camera is shut off for some reason. Oh, you know what? I think that was my screensaver, my laptop screensaver. Anyway. Where was I? Yeah. So this line I've identified as a unique pairing. So I'm going to light those up separately. And also I think I've chosen like these three lights and maybe these three. And again, these three. I'll create compartments around those groups. I'll light those up with the cool variants of the warm light, and then the rest, the ambient inside the secondary hull, is just going to be a neutral white, assuming that these are mostly engineering stations or whatever. I don't know. They can be whatever your imagination wants them to be, I suppose. And then of course in here we've got our we've got some spotlights. Now I've got genuine cool LED bulbs for spotlights, and I'll use those here and here. I've looked up in the movies, there's this curious light here. There's one on each side. These aren't spots. I had originally thought these were supposed to be spotlights, but the way these are formed, they don't point upwards like these ones do. They point outwards, and in the movie, these turn out to be red. I don't know what they're for, but these are red lights. They're just always red every time I see them. So I bought some little red lights for these as well. Of course, the bottom of the neck, we've got spotlights here and here, here and here, and these kind of point up the neck. There's also spots in the, is there in the nacelle? No, I don't think there is. I think between this pair, one of them is supposed to point up the neck, and the other is supposed to point at the nacelle and create a spot on the nacelle. I don't know if I can achieve that, but I eyeballed it. I had the nacelle on the edge of the pylon here, and I kind of, oh no, sorry, that's these ones. These are pointed directly at the tail end, the aft end of the pylon, and there's a registry number there. So I think that's where the spotlight is supposed to come out and hit the nacelles out of these, like this, at that angle there. So we'll see. These are, I think, just point up the neck. Maybe this one forward and this one upwards. Don't forget the saucer section comes quite a bit out here. So probably at least a pair of these is supposed to point up at the back of the saucer section. And then of course we have to move on to, this is going to be a challenge, maybe. I have bought, now again, I was speaking of those 4 different varieties of RGB through holes, and one of them I'll poke through the hole in the middle of the dish here. So there's a hole in the middle. That's perfect for a little SMD. I'll use RGB again so that I can play with the hue that I have coming out of this. But just in case I want to do it, because when I reference the movies, it seems to be that the light from the middle should come out of the middle, but then diffuse. It shouldn't get stronger, it should get weaker as it comes towards the edge. So I'm not sure how that's going to react with, again, I don't know the names of most of these things, but along this inside edge here, there are little teeny rectangles, and you're supposed to get a pretty bright blue light out of there as well. And I thought, well, maybe to achieve that, I may need to do a circular series of little SMD RGBs and somehow line them up just enough along the inside here. So I bought 12, well, I bought 15 actually, but I thought I would use 12, like the clock positions, to create that ring of light that would be separate. I mean, it would be on the same circuit, but separate light source from the middle RGB. It's a lot of work. We'll see how just the blue turns out first before I embark on, but I have them in my inventory just to make sure in case I need them. And then of course I have the nacelles themselves, which I don't have in front of me right now. They're somewhere else. So I'm not going to bother getting into those. Those are, so the nacelles have, the main difference with the nacelles is along the edge of the nacelle you have the coolers, or the chillers I think they're called, and there's these 5 little lines that are kind of a bluish purplish color, more towards the violet I guess. I've been thinking about how to deal with those. I actually bought some purple LEDs just in case those might come in handy. We'll see. I even I considered the idea of taking a strand of fiber optic, roughing it up so that light actually comes out of it rather than just traveling through it, and somehow mounting those thin little strips of fiber optic along where the chiller goes. And then with the fiber optic, I would, of course, glue them on the inside. I would glue them to those purple LEDs, and then I would get that color. We'll see. I mean, I'll experiment a little bit before I commit to anything there. I haven't even seen what color. I mean, if they're too purple, I'm not going to use them because I don't think that would be appropriate. I may end up needing to use another RGB just to get that hue that I'm looking for. But I've got a few varieties of those RGBs, so it's not a big deal. I can experiment and play around, and I have choices there. And of course, we have the lights out of the thrusters and the phaser banks. I haven't even begun to think about that yet. All I know is that out of the impulse engines. That's what this is. They need to be red, I believe. And then, of course, out of the phaser banks, those are also red. But I'd like to program those in such a way that we achieve a firing effect. I have some screenshots of the photon torpedoes in action. And the light does seem to come from inside, and then poof, it kind of shoots outwards. So I wouldn't mind achieving that. I don't know if I could buy some styrene tubing and achieve that effect where the light appears to come closer towards you and then bang, it fires. We'll see. We'll see when I get there. But yeah, I mean, lots to do. There's lots to do. The biggest thing right now is cutting all these little pieces. That's going to be quite the chore. And what I did is I took the original that I had cut that worked, and I just put some felt, like Sharpie felt, around the outside edge of it, and then I took my piece of styrene, did the best I could to mount it square against the piece of styrene. I took an alligator clip, clipped it there to hold it, and then I just cut it and kind of shaped the piece I did. And I've got how many of them? So there's my original. And I used the black marker just to make sure that when I was sanding down that I wasn't getting past the original form, that I knew I was maintaining my shape. So how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, I think. This is where I wish I had a 3D printer, because I could turn these out really quick with a 3D printer, and there's probably still one in the model. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think there's still one in the saucer section. Is there? No, I took it out. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I've got a few more of these to go. I think I need 30 somewhat of them. Not exactly fun, but it's something to do. I sat and watched Sherlock Holmes on TV last night. Like an old school Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of the Baskervilles with, I forget the fellow's name. He played the dude on the Death Star, the big head honcho that was always bickering with Princess Leia. Oh, there it is. So I have 6 of them right now. 6 of them. 6 of them was enough to do one section of these. And I have 6 of those to do, so I need 36. And then, of course, I need to do this. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. One last thing I forgot to mention. Because I am lighting up those bottom pairs of windows individually, like this one and this one, again, the concern is with the light blocking. I need to create a room, a compartment, now above this original surface, which, as I said, I did play around, and I've come up with a strategy for closing this gap. But my concern was then I need to raise up a wall here, a bulkhead, another one in the middle, and then put a roof over it and a wall in the back. Now, the wall in the back, it's not going to run into any problems, I don't think, but the height of this may become a problem, and I was concerned with the bottom part of the saucer section. Once I mated these together, I didn't want to prevent the bottom of the saucers from closing on top of this. So I put them together. It turns out it's not a problem at all. There's a lot of clearance in here, so I should be able to mess around with that without any issues. So that was good news as well. So I think I have my plan. In effect, I was a little bit concerned going into that. I wasn't sure I was able to achieve that. It might have been an impossible dream, but just in my playing around last night, like I said, I was at it till about 3 in the morning, and it turns out it is achievable. And then, of course, my LEDs. I've made a few of them. I've been testing with them a little bit. So, again, I have soldered my resistor directly to the LED. I'm going to have to change that. So I just have the wires. I was dipping these in my black paint just to give the lead a black color, so I can, once you have a bunch of them, I'm going to need to know positive from negative. I'm also going to need to number them for when I'm doing the actual programming, which I haven't even begun to do yet. I'll have to do that pretty quick here. But yeah, I think things are moving along pretty nicely. I'm happy about that. What I need to do though is actually start getting my LED down in there, building some of these compartments. I'll do it in one section first just to see what kind of results I get. Get the LED in there, I'll light them all up, and then test for light leaks, see how well I can get that light blocked. I think it can be done, but it's going to be a challenge for sure. But it will get done. Something else I wanted to mention? I think we're good. I did want to go through my electronics, but I'm thinking maybe I'll do that. This video is already pretty long, so maybe I'll do a separate video for that, because I've actually, since my original introduction, I have accumulated other inventory that I felt was going to be absolutely essential. It's my last big inventory splurge. I think from now on it's just going to be small little bits and pieces, like for example the styrene. It turns out I need 3/4 mil by 1.5 mil, like I said. So I mean, just one-off items like that are probably still going to come up, but the bulk of my main inventory I think is taken care of. So I wouldn't mind doing another little brief inventory review. Maybe in that one I'll go through my the electronics shipment that came through. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this video. I will get this into post-production and try to get it up for you as quickly as I can here, and then move on with the rest of the model. I'm really eager to get into building these cabins and seeing how well that turns out. I mean, the first one is exciting. The rest are just going to be tedium. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Comments, questions, concerns are always welcome. And I'll try to get this up quickly here. Take care. Bye for now.